you suffer.
No, I wouldn't call it suffering, but I see my misconception that I like this bread, why don't you make it anymore? You know, me, I'm the customer. Where's my bread? It didn't sell well. I don't care, I want it. I'm not talking like this, I understand, but it's not, but bread is a good example, you know, it's something that is always the same, especially if you're in India, it's chapati, chapati, chapati bread. But here in the West, it's not enough. Yeah, like when I was a kid, we had white bread, brown bread, and bread like full bread, like where the whole corn was inside. That was about it. Now you have to go and choose. Oh, that's why I'm happy when I found one. And I think, yeah, okay. So it's like crazy. Yeah, it's totally crazy. And then how much of this gets thrown away because they didn't sell it? So in Bern, I always went there. In Bern, we had a bakery where they would sell the bread from the day before. Like all the bakeries, they didn't make any bread. All the bakeries would bring their bread there, that was left over, would bring it to institutions or, you know, and then you could buy it for half price or something like that. And more this is happening. Do you have this system also in Israel? Yeah. Like, or in supermarkets, you know, a whole box full of vegetables for €5. They're a little bit kind of, you know, you have to cut off maybe a little bit something, but it's okay. So I used to go there because I quite liked it. Why? I tell you why I liked it. Because it's the same-minded people that go there. People who are on the left, people who are, you know, not so, people who are, I think, relaxed and spiritual, and people who are concerned about the environment but not gluing themselves to the ground. You know, people my age, kind of a bit moderate also about what we're doing. So this is why I went there also. This was a big part of it, actually, seeing the people there and liking the idea that it doesn't get thrown away. It can have to do with being stingy. So you do the same thing, looks good, but you're stingy because you go there because it's half price. But it's not worse or better than to go there because you don't want to have to throw it away. It's just an attitude. I'm not saying you have to have the attitude you don't want. No, if you think, oh, it's cheaper here, I go here. Good enough. It gets bought. Yeah.
We have in Tel Aviv a community fridge. So
yeah, right. Community fridges, you can put things there. Yeah, that's good. Do you know about these things? Okay, good. So it's slowly, you know, but very slowly it's happening. Okay, so coming back to what I'm supposed to talk about. Oh, it's getting worse and worse, I tell you. This is why I don't really want to give talks anymore, because I get totally distracted in stories and stuff. Anyway, I'm not putting up a show. That's how it is. So I'm natural, I'm normal, I'm the way I am, so if you like it or not, it's fine with me. I still like you, so it's okay. I hope. Okay, so another one, the biggest one, is that we project an I or a me or an essence into somewhere where there's no I or me or essence. And this is what emptiness is all about. So this is where all the other afflictions, the other nirmums or kleshas are coming from, because and this I or me comes from, they say ignorance, but it's not really ignorance. It comes from lacking awareness. Being dull, being, like somebody like a train on rails. I'm used to this, habits, instincts, all this. So I just go this way. Other people also do like this, We learn it also a little bit. I mean, there's an inherent grasping at the me or I that's separate from body and the mind. There's also a learned one. Yeah, the learned one, like you have societies where you are not learning to be an individual, you learn to be part of a group, because you need to do that in order to survive. Maybe Israel 75 years ago, I'm not sure. You couldn't be so individual, I want this, I want that, blah, blah, blah. People had to work together, because otherwise how can they get this country going? So it's just attitude. You let go of what you want a little bit, and then so you become part of a society. It's training. But then we learned you have to be somebody, you have to be an individual, and especially we learn, you will be happy when you're successful, when people like you, when, what else? When you're rich. Oh gosh, I could, now at the moment, the people who kind of put me up, they're all quite well off. The problems that they have, I'm happy I don't have these problems. With all the property and all the money, and some of it is black money, they don't know what to do with it. It's crazy. But this is what the Buddha says, no matter what, there will be something that is upsetting you. There will be something that if you would have a choice, you would not choose it, right? Okay, so this one is the biggest one, and this one is the most important thing to understand. I think intellectually that things by nature are impermanent, we get that one, yeah? Because we can see it. We just we're not trained enough yet to see it directly. And this is how the Buddha started, actually. He started with teaching on impermanence, that things are not lasting, yeah? The second one, that pleasure is not happiness. Ooh. If I say this in France, this is kind of a very touchy subject. Then you say, yeah, but life without desire is dull and boring and, because they have, of course, the food, the wine, the clothes, not so much anymore, like other countries overtaking them, I think. So much goes into making the outside things perfect, right? Oh, France is also falling apart at the moment, I tell you. Monsieur Macron has lots of problems. Yeah. So then all this beauty, what is it? What's the point? You see, these things, they work when you're well. Then you go like, wow, beautiful, and there seems to be some happiness. If you have a toothache, the most beautiful, whatever it is, will absolutely not interest you. You will want to get rid of your toothache. You cannot see the so-called beauty when they're suffering. And we use it as an antidote to suffering. Yeah, this is how stupid we are. We spend so much money. Yeah. So, but that we can slowly start to understand. So we don't have to put so much effort into presenting the food, But, I mean, it's getting more and more like this. I mean, people pay so much money to have the food arranged on the plate in a certain way. Yeah, you put it in your stomach, it all goes. For monks and nuns, it's best you put everything in one pot, all of it. But then that's against attachment to food, because you have to work with attachment. If you try to satisfy it all the time, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So this is why when they go, on Pindapat with their begging bowl, everything goes inside. Then they get so attached that if they get it separate, they put it together before they eat it, because they got attached to the taste of eating everything together. So we can find attachment everywhere. But I think we can see that, and then, ourselves, we don't have to put so much effort into, of course we're happy when people say, oh, food is good or wonderfully presented. It's appealing to the eye, it's true, and then they say it helps the digestion when it's so appealing. Yeah, I mean, why not? But it's not. For me, you don't need, okay? I really like simple food, and not, especially when I give talks, not too much, and that talk is finished, the food is there, I eat it, and I start talking to people. So then it's fine. That's the best way. It's also attachment. There you go. Yeah. So but it's kind of easy to recognize, that we kind of wreck the world here in our Western world, where we have the possibilities to be comfortable and to have pleasure. That we spend a lot of money, because we think that that's it. If I have enough pleasure, I'll be happy. Then the last one, this whole thing about, there's a third one which I don't like to mention so much, because it sounds very Buddhist, that what we think, I'll mention it, that we think that what is actually by nature impure, we think of it as pure. What do you think that is? Huh? What? Something that we take very good care of so that we don't see its impurity.
The body.
The body. Right. You know, my body is like, wow, I spend so much money on this body. It's like to clean it, to keep it healthy, to do this, to keep it attractive. People undergo operations for appearance. And as many of these surgeons say, you start with one, you get addicted to it, you don't stop anymore. Because why? Because you still have not found the happiness that you want. Yeah. Okay, so that one. But I don't mention it so much because then people go to the other extreme and say, okay, so the body is no good, I have to throw it away, it's a dirty thing. No, it's not. The body is a very, very good thing to practice, to be helpful to others, to be able to communicate. If we don't have a mouth to talk and all this, we cannot communicate. It's a good thing that we can use to, if you want children, to produce children without anybody, it's not okay. And actually, if you have children, then you get very close to unconditional love. Then at least you get a taste of attached, real love. Because for your children and for your grandchildren, I always say the same thing. It might not be yours. They might have been exchanged in the hospital. But we're so sure they're mine because it's got this thing on it. There was a movie that Leora Price's daughter played in it, where she was a pianist. Nama was a pianist. She's not here, Leora. She was a pianist, and she had a son who was deaf, and she exchanged him for somebody else in the hospital. Yeah, because she wanted a pianist, and he became a pianist, but then finally, it's quite an interesting movie. So maybe then you start to question, yeah. But towards these beings that we call our children, I don't have any, but I see it, we can give up our ego, we can give up all the things, only the best for them, what you think is the best for them, they might not think. They might have other views, and then the clashes start. But this is where the heart is really open, and I think at one bar mitzvah, I was there and somebody thanked his son, and he said, I thank you very much for coming into this world, because without you, I would never have discovered these wonderful feelings that I have inside of me. Recognizing that it's thanks to the son and not thanks to him. I love you so much. It's more, we should actually say, thank you for allowing me to love you so much, because one could also reject, right? Well, that's happiness. This is, but then if it comes with attachment, somebody said yesterday, who has grandchildren, with this kind of love, worry comes. We're attached. With attachment comes fear of loss immediately. You can't help it. As long as we have not understood that there is no inherent, permanent, autonomous existence, and definitely there's no inherent, autonomous, permanent I and others, there will be attachment and anger, small, not big ones, but it will be there. It is you, and you will worry. This is, you can no help. The only way here is really understanding that things do not exist the way that they appear to us. We think that I can exist without others. I mean, for a short while. But if there's never any others, I cannot be I. I can only be when there's others, then I am I. They talked on the radio in Switzerland, they talked about Swiss identity, what it means to be Swiss, yeah? So, and they even mentioned it, without others we could not be Swiss, because you need others to be different, so that you can be what you are. it doesn't feel like this, but that's the way it is. Or we say, oh, it's normal. It's not. The instinct is not like this. That existence is depending on non-existence. And they need both to exist, and that's dualistic. So when the Buddha was teaching about emptiness, that things do not exist the way that they appear, to us they appear to exist in exactly the way that our mind sees it. And we firmly believe in it. And we're so unaware, this is why I said it's lacking awareness. We're so unaware, even though we heard it. I heard it so many times, I am unaware that the same object sometimes can produce nice feelings and sometimes can produce not nice feelings. The same object. I'm not even, I am aware of it when I think about it, but instinctively I'm not aware of it. I'm not questioning it. I go, it's their fault. I'm not kind of looking at the person and saying, well, I did like you a while ago. How come I don't like you anymore? I'm blaming the other person. They behave differently, they do different things. Lama Yeshe at one point, he said to somebody as a young man, and he said he wants to become monk. So Lama Yeshe said, yeah, okay. Then a little bit later, he can say, maybe not, because I just fell in love with the woman, and, we get along so well, we can support each other in the practice, it's so wonderful. So Lama Yeshe said, yeah, okay, then you don't become monk. A little bit later on, he goes and says, oh, Lord, this woman, she's so grasping, so attached to me, I can't practice anymore. And, she's hindering my practice, it's terrible, what shall I do? And Lama Yeshe just looked at him and said, look, dear, somebody changing so much in such a short time, biologically, totally impossible. From being so attached and wanting to be only together to get rid of her, it's impossible, but we firmly believe in it. It's the fault of this other person. Yeah? And as I'm saying, this is why we have to hear this again and again and again and again, and practice things like vipassana and awareness and being awake, also not just on the cushion, but to carry that what you learn on the cushion, to train hours and hours and hours, in, out, in, out, in, out. Say, I know how to do this, it's boring. Yes, it's boring, but it trains the mind to do this naturally, to notice what's going on, and then to start to question what our mind is telling us. At least to question it. Say, how can it be? We will still react like this, but like that. But that's the most difficult thing to explain, especially when it comes to the I, to the me. Yeah, we all have a feeling, I think, of an inherently existing, separate, autonomous third entity inside of this body and mind. Right? This I exists. Now don't go into it doesn't exist. And we only feel it when something goes wrong, when something happens that we don't like so much. But where the mistake lies, we believe in it as something stable, right? Firm, concrete. I, me. I am angry. I am happy. I am so intelligent. I am so stupid. And the I seems to be always the same. But we don't look. An I that is happy, I tell you, we do the meditation, the reflection, feels totally different from an I that is depressed. But we're convinced that we're having one I. Now, if we would have many, many, many different I's, boy, life would get really complicated. So we have none of those, okay? We have mental factors, attitudes, emotions that change. And there's nothing behind it that kind of is having this, or that we don't need to have an I to be angry. Get angry, you don't have to. The I says, hey, come on, get angry now, or hey, come on, get jealous now. I need to have an I, a convention that tells me, hey, you could be a bit kinder, this I need. you know. But for other stuff, like all what we call kleshas or pneumos or afflictions, I don't need anything. It just comes up by itself, because this I, this me, is actually functioning. Unfortunately, functions with the mind and with the misconception, and because we grasp at it. You see, oh, I forgot the spider. Oh, anyway. Some of you might know it is a kind of hallucination kind of thing, you know, where you have a spider, which is plastic, which gets projected to the top. It's a hologram, but he's not there because it's two mirrors. He's perfect to understand misconceptions. We are totally convinced, if you don't know how it works, you're totally convinced that the spider is there. It gets projected to the area where there's a hole in it like this, but there's mirrors both sides. And you think that the spider is sitting on the hole because it looks like the mirror. So I ask people very often, try to move it. And most of them say, oh, it doesn't exist. Some of them say, oh, it's very soft. This is how strong the mind is, because you're convinced that there's a spider, so you feel something. Some of them, even they know it's not sitting there, it is out of plastic, they are not able to go there with their finger. Because memories of I don't know what happened, spider phobia is so strong that prevents you from going there. So the misconception is, so the appearing of the I, you know, it's not a problem, but to believe that it's really there and then to act on it, that is the problem. How many of you watched Geshe? You were watching Geshe, what's his name? Dorje Damdrul. What was he saying? We have mistakes in appearance and it's mistakes in apprehension. Yeah? So we will see these things arising. We will see, it's called inherent existence. By the way, if I say words that you don't understand, just ask. Just say, hey, what is it? I don't understand. I don't understand inherent existence. And then I will ask one of all the other ones who didn't ask to explain to you. Because I know I'm throwing out words and there's sometimes this, but don't worry, you know, if really you are interested in these things, you will come again and again and again and again, and you will start to slowly understand and to internalize, as we kind of said. You know, we had a discussion and we said the more you hear it and you internalize it, and then you start acting on this also. And actually then all of a sudden your family says, oh wow, you've changed so much. For the better, yeah, I guess. Yeah. My boyfriend told me that, my ex-boyfriend. Wow, you changed so much. I think now I could live with you. For me it was a compliment because I was already a nun, so it was okay, and he was married and we get on along really well, so it was okay. Yeah. Otherwise what would your ego say? You know, when your ex-boyfriend comes and says, wow, you know, I think now I could live with you, would you feel happy? No. Yeah, I was very happy. I thought, oh wow, he sees the change because he knows me so well. And he suffered. He really did. This is why I didn't want to go into a longer... You know, I could present it as something very altruistic. Oh, poor guy, I didn't want him to suffer. But I also suffered when I saw how I make him suffer. So it was for me. I separated from him, not for him. It was for me because I thought, oh, I'm better off alone. You know? So I never had this feeling that I need a partner. I don't know. Maybe now with all these gender discussions, maybe I would be, you know, labeled as gender neutral, or I don't know. I never felt like typically woman or wanting to be a man, or it's like, I was just human, you know, like, strange. I mean, strange. Now they start to understand there are people like this. And I feel very comfortable with this. I'm not, you know, I'm feeling whatever. Nobody ever, you know, sometimes people ask me, why did you never get married? Well, because I didn't want to. I prefer to be alone. It's also problems, but I find it's less problems. And also I was an alcoholic when I was younger. This is why I suffered so much, and I definitely didn't want to have children. I had enough problems with myself at that time. But all of this can be overcome. All of this can be okay. You know, you're thin, okay. You're fat, okay. You're old, okay. You're young, okay. You're successful, okay. You're not successful, okay. How can it come that it can be okay, whatever? What do you think? I don't let you talk so much. I'm talking enough me here. What do you think? How can it be okay when your ego goes, not okay, not okay, not okay, not okay, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too old, the wrinkles, this and that. How can it be okay? How can you train so that it's okay? So that at least you don't spend so much time to be unhappy about something that you cannot change. How?
Maybe because it's not so important. Maybe because there are other
That's
things.
dangerous. To tell the ego it's not important, it doesn't buy it. Yeah, it is very important for
No,
me.
because as you said before, in order to be happy, you need something else.
Yeah, okay.
It seems.
So exactly, but then you have to find something else. Or you have to find the advantage of being thin, of being fat, of being old, of being successful, of not being successful, of being young. And there's always advantages. What's the advantage of being fat? I put on quite a lot of weight actually. It's okay. You know, my skirt is like very wide. I have to make the folds like this, so I can wear this for a long time. No problem. And the belt is still 2 times around, so then for a long time around.
I remember something
So-
else.
Huh?
I remember something else. When I think I'm old, it's already I was younger, because now I'm older.
Yeah.
So it changes all the time.
Yeah, right.
Never.
But what's the advantage? You know, when you are depressed about this, is it? If you don't have any, yeah, if you don't have any problems, you don't have to think like this about it. You see? If it's okay for you, if it's really okay that somebody would come and say, wow, you aged so much. Gosh, I hardly recognize you. I wonder if you would not mind. Maybe truly you would not mind. Or then, you know, somebody comes and you know the person really well, and, you know, I'm always exaggerating, okay? So, because I can't make the point. But somebody you know really well, and they sit next to you, and you wait for them to say hello. They don't say hello, no. Then you go, hey, don't you recognize? No, who are you? You know, who are
I find when somebody says, oh, you became so nice, I say, what? I was a monster?
Yeah, exactly, for example. Yeah. So no, so what, again, you know, for example, the advantage of being fat, when you get sick, you have some reserves. I know people are very thin, then they got sick, and then they really fell apart. For me, from my side, this is a bit gross, I know, but anyway, we talk about this and all this, because my body will get cremated, it will burn much better, it will use much less energy than all these only bone and skin and flesh ones. Yeah. What's the advantage of being thin? Yes, it's healthier, and yes, you can move freer, and all these things. What's the advantage of being young? You still have your life before you. You can. What's the advantage of being old? It's much more quiet. You have learned a lot of things. You can train to be content with what you had and just live the rest of a few years, okay? What's the advantage of being successful? Everybody likes you. Everybody wants you. It gets too much. That's the disadvantage, right? And what's the advantage of not being successful? People leave you in peace. So you can find advantages everywhere. But you need to use it, and you need to introduce it to your mind, because otherwise the mind won't believe it and will still react to these things. Yeah? Because the Tibetans, they would say, oh man, you aged. You know, but you look well, but oof, you got really old. Yeah? So you learn amongst different cultures, you learn not to react to things that you know is very touchy in another culture, and also not to say it when you know that it's touchy. Yeah.
Maybe another advantage of being fat is needing to be afraid of being fat.
Exactly. Very good. You don't need to be afraid of being fat. That's what he said. You already are. You don't have to put so much effort into keeping your thing. Yeah. And I think, you know, a good heart is always recognized in old people, in young people, in fat people, in thin people, in in whatever people, isn't it? But we have to develop a good heart. And the good heart is not to be just concerned about yourself and not to be also